sun was merciless that day, the kind that didn't just shine, it punished. Its burning rays bounced off the golden riverbank like hot knives licking the skin, and every grain of sand felt like a coal beneath bare feet. The breeze should have been cool from the water, but even the wind was tired, moving slow and heavy as if weighed down by the suffering it carried across the land. And there, bound to a massive sun-baked rock with coarse rope cutting into her wrists and arms, sat Kaya, the proud Apache woman whose spirit had never known defeat. Sweat rolled down her temple like tears she refused to shed, her chest rising and falling slowly, but her eyes, sharp as obsidian, remained unbroken. She did not struggle. She could have. But she knew every jerk of her body would only tighten the ropes and waste what little strength she had left. Beside her, just a few paces away in the scorching sand, knelt her daughter Tala, no more than 7 summers old, clutching a worn-out doll made of buckskin and beaded with love. She had long stopped crying. Her tears had dried up hours ago. Now she sat in a kind of silent terror, her small hands trembling as she whispered under her breath in Apache, not a prayer for herself but for her mother. They had been taken at dawn. Kaya had fought, of course. When the white men came to take land that was not theirs, she had stood before their fire sticks like a lioness defending her cub. She had shouted at them in English and Apache both, telling them this river was sacred, that her people drank from it long before any fence was built upon it. But the one with the scar on his cheek, and hate in his eyes, the one who smelled of whiskey and wickedness, had struck her across the face with his rifle. She remembered falling to the ground, tasting blood. She remembered Tala screaming, and then darkness. When she awoke, she was tied to stone like some sacrifice, like she was less than human. But Kaya was no offering. She was a warning, and the spirits of her ancestors were already watching. Across the river, hidden between willows and sagebrush, a lone rider had stopped to water his horse. His name was Colton Hayes, a cowboy who had once believed in law and order until he saw how often law rode beside evil. His hands were rough, his shirt torn at the sleeves, his boots worn from miles of wandering, but his heart still knew right from wrong. He bent to fill his canteen when he heard it, faint at first, like a wounded dove. A child's sob. His head snapped up. He scanned the riverbank and froze. What he saw churned something deep in him, something that made his blood heat hotter than the sun above. A woman bound. A child alone. A rope wrapped around innocence. And 2 shadows pacing near the tree line, rifles slung over their shoulders, laughing at some joke unworthy of laughter. Colton's jaw clenched. "Not today," he muttered. He untied his horse and led it quietly behind a boulder. No time for plans. No time for second thoughts. Some things in life don't wait for clarity. They demand action. He crouched low, moving silently through the burning sand, every step a promise.
Kaya saw him first.
She blinked, unsure if her mind was playing tricks from the heat. A cowboy? Approaching, but with no greed in his eyes, only fire. Tala turned too, her doll slipping from her hands. She didn't speak. She simply stared at this stranger like she had been expecting him her whole life, as if her whispered prayers had been heard. Colton placed a finger to his lips. "I ain't here to hurt you," he whispered softly. Then louder, to the men across the sand. "Hey!" His voice cracked across the riverbank like a whip. The 2 gunmen turned, startled. "What in hell? You left your manners in the mud," Colton said, stepping forward boldly. "Untie the lady." The scarred man let out an ugly laugh. "Ain't your concern, cowboy." "Best keep riding," Colton shrugged. "See, that's the problem. I got a bad habit of minding other people's business when their business smells like hell." His hand hovered near his revolver. The air went still. Even the river seemed to pause. Kaya's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Tala quietly reached for her mother's arm, pressing her cheek against it. Colton took another step. "Last warning," he growled. The scarred man spat. "Fine, I'll untie her after I put a bullet in." He never finished the sentence. Colton's gun was out faster than breath, a single shot cracking like thunder. The villain's rifle flew from his hands as he screamed, clutching his arm. Sand exploded as the second man dove for cover. Colton fired again, grazing the ground near the man's boot. "Next one won't miss," Colton warned. The men dropped their weapons and ran into the brush like cowards chased by judgment. Only when they vanished from sight did Colton finally lower his gun. His boots sank into the hot sand as he approached the rock, his chest heaving. Kaya stared at him, Pride and disbelief tangled in her eyes. He knelt beside her without a word and drew a knife from his belt. The blade pressed gently against the rope. Snip. Freedom loosened around her shoulders. Kaya winced as circulation returned to her arms. He moved to untie her hands. Their eyes met, warrior to warrior. No words spoken, but an understanding forged. He turned to Tala, who still watched him cautiously. He smiled softly. "You okay, little one?" She didn't answer. Instead, she wrapped her tiny arms around her mother's waist as the final rope fell away. Kaya stood slowly, hands trembling, but not from fear, from rage, from gratitude, from life returning. Colton stepped back respectfully. "Name's Colton Hayes." Kaya inhaled deeply. "Kaya," she replied. "This is my daughter, Tala." He nodded. "We gotta move. Those men will be back with more." Kaya straightened, all exhaustion burned away by purpose. "Let them come," she spat. "This land is mine. My people's, I will not run." Colton looked at her, truly looked at her. And in that moment he made a decision that would change both their fates. "Then I'll stand with you." And as the river flowed beside them like ancient wisdom in the sun, finally dipped lower in respect, a bond was forged, not of blood, not of language, but of honor. And honor is stronger than any rope. If you want to see what happens when the cowards return and how Kaya and Colton face them together, don't miss Chapter 2. And if this moment gripped your heart, make sure to subscribe so you never miss tales of real courage like this. Chapter 2 is coming.